Alex Matijewitsch von Bibelfinanz mit einer neuen Folge von Nachgefragt. Heute spreche ich mit Peter Brisoe. Peter, nice to meet you here in Malaga. I know you are an Englishman living in the Netherlands. I know you were a successful businessman in space industry. And I know it's your passion to teach people about living and working in God's economy.
Yeah.
So for all our listeners who don't know you yet, could you please describe yourself in 3 or 4 sentences, who you are, what you do, what's important to know about you?
Okay, well, I'm an Englishman, but I'm married to a Dutch lady. I was moved over to Holland when I was a young man, 24, to start a sales office of industrial chemicals in Holland. And so I built up that business to become managing director of a subsidiary of an English chemical company. I left that business in the late 80s to start a movement of Christian business people in Europe. I think in Germany it's partly known as Christen in der Wirtschaft or IVCG. But I left to start this movement in Europe because in 1990 the Berlin Wall collapsed, and the countries in Eastern Europe became open for the gospel. And so at that time, I spent most of my time seeking ways in which we could present the gospel to people in responsible positions, Menschen in Verantwortlichkeit, in Eastern Europe. During that time, I had my own business, consulting in chemicals, like a tent maker. And I passed that work on to somebody else. And in 2002, I was able to take over a small business delivering services to the European Space Agency, which has its major headquarters in Holland. So our business was basically training astronauts to do experiments on the International Space Station. We were intermediary between university and industry who wanted to do experiments, and the space station on the other side to do feasibility studies, to see if it was if the experiments were possible in space, and also to make sure it's done safely under these very special conditions. So I enjoyed that work very much indeed, and that's who I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And I'm a Christian. Yeah. Since I was 16 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Ich spreche jetzt, frage ihn auf Deutsch, er versteht Deutsch und er wird dann auf Englisch antworten. Peter, bei uns bei Bibelfinanz geht alles letztendlich ums Thema Finanzen aus Sicht der Bibel, aus biblischer Perspektive. Von daher die erste Frage, wenn du den Begriff Geld hörst, was ist das Erste, woran du dann denkst?
Trouble.
Trouble, okay.
It started when I was about 14, I guess, because my father became bankrupt.
Okay.
And we had to move from one day to the next to go and live with my auntie, hundreds of kilometers away. I could take only with me what I could carry. I had to leave everything behind. And so at the time we lost everything. So so money means trouble.
Okay.
And also during that time, because my father wanted to continue buying things which out of his heart for the family that he really couldn't afford. He bought things on the mail order on credit, and I remember that he had difficulty paying it back. And I remember laying in bed one evening, listening to my mother and father arguing in the bedroom next door about how to pay the bills. And I said to myself, I am never going to borrow money in my life. And up to today, I haven't, with the exception of a mortgage for our first house.
Okay.
I've started 3 businesses without debt, and we've never had any personal debt. So I think money means trouble, especially if you have borrowed money that you cannot pay back.
Oh yes.
But of course, money's fun if you have it. But if you don't have it, it's
Okay. Eine andere Frage, die ich dir stellen möchte, du hast sicherlich auch schon erlebt, ich kenne es aus deinen Büchern, dass Gott nicht nur spirituell, geistlich versorgt, sondern auch materiell, finanziell.
Yeah, yeah.
Magst du uns da vielleicht ein, zwei konkrete Beispiele erzählen,
Okay,
wie
well,
Gott in deinem Leben ganz konkret
One
versorgt
time
hat?
when I left my well-paid job as the CEO of this chemical company, because I wanted to join a mission organization there, the Christian business people, to share the gospel in Eastern Europe. I was without income from one day to the next. Nothing, zero. We weren't very good at saving money at the time. We had 3 small children. And we thought, well, help, how are we going to do this? But we decided in faith to do this, and I must say the Lord has provided. During that time, he did help me to start a small business so I could start earning money for myself. But I think, you know, when God asks you to do something and step out in faith, he will always provide the money that you need.
Very good.
Do you want a second example, maybe? When in our business, I remember it was in 2006, at the European Space Agency, we had a turnover of 6 million or something, 5-6 million. 80% of our contracts were up for renewal. So that means if we could not recompete the contracts and win them again, we'd be in serious trouble. And
What happened?
well, at the time, it was a difficult time because 2 of our major teams working on the space station said, if you don't give us more money, we are going to go to the competition. You know, to get contracts at the space agency, you have to have the right people. And so they were kind of threatening us. And also at the same time, we realized that one of the purchasing agents actually had an interest in a competing company. And someone else was asking for, you know, money under the table for influence, or some people call it a love offer. But we decided we are not going to do that. And but the Lord did provide. We competed the contracts. We didn't get all of them, but we got some new ones, which enabled our business to continue and to grow. So yeah, the Lord is always good.
Thanks a lot, Peter.
But you do sometimes have nervous times.
Yes.
When is the money going to come?
Never too late.
Never too late.
Sometimes very late for us, in our opinion.
In our perception,
Yeah.
late, yeah.
Peter, eine letzte Frage. Wenn du an Gottes Finanzprinzipien denkst, wo würdest du sagen, das ist der Kerngedanke, den jeder gehört haben sollte, über Gottes Finanzprinzip?
Okay, well, I think one that to realize that God is the creator of heaven and earth, and he's not only the creator, but he's the owner an operator of everything, and the sustainer. And to realize, you know, that God owns me, because the Bible says that Jesus has bought me back. So that everything I have, or I have in my possession, is not really my own. I learned that, I think, as a small boy, 14 years old, when I had to leave everything behind. I really discovered you never own anything anyway. You only have access for a certain period of time. And so to realize that God owns everything that I have in my possession is very liberating. It sets you free, because if you don't own anything, you cannot lose anything. And that's a liberating principle. I think another one is when Jesus said you cannot serve both God and mammon. And Jesus was kind of showing us that there's a God behind money, or a power behind money, which is opposed to God. He said you have to choose either one or the other. You cannot serve both God and mammon. And to realize that managing money is not just a technical exercise, but it's also a spiritual discipline. So if we want to have a victory over this spiritual power, which is tempting us to choose his way instead of God's way, then we need to realize he's there, And we need to realize that Jesus has helped us to get the victory over mammon. And so I think that managing money is just not technical exercise of adding and subtracting and percentages, but there's something very spiritual behind it. As you may know, that people when they make purchasing decisions, it's 95% emotion. So Mammon, who is opposed to God, always uses this to take us away from the best that God has for us. So I think those are two thoughts or principles which I consider very important.
Yeah, Peter, thank you very much.
Okay.
And God bless you.
Okay, vielen Dank.